Hey there, I'm Sarah from thesistersenchanted.com, and I am here to bring you our three-part video series on pendulums. So part one is going to be about choosing your pendulum and different types of pendulums. Part two will be about programming your pendulum, getting ready to use it and actually using it. And part three will be about going beyond the yes or no. So using your pendulum for all different types of things, more than just finding out a yes or a no. So let's dive into part one. So part one is going to be about choosing your pendulum and the different types, like I mentioned before. So before I dive into that, I'll just give you a little bit of background information on pendulums. So pendulums are a divination tool, but they are also technically and originally a dowsing tool. So what that means is that pendulums can be used or have been used throughout history to locate things. So pendulums have been used to locate water, different minerals, oil, and even bombs in times of war. And there's that old kind of wives' tale tradition of tying a wedding ring to a string and holding it over a pregnant woman's belly to identify the gender of the baby. That is actually a pendulum in use, and an old way of using a pendulum that doctors in the past have used to identify the gender of an unborn baby. So, and that has turned into an old, wives' tale for us today. But as you can see, pendulums have been used throughout time for all different kinds of things. In times of war, they've been brought in by government officials, for pendulum experts, dowsing experts, to help find things, find resources, and like I said, locate bombs in times of war. So pendulums have a rich history, and you might be more familiar even with their kind of cousin, a dowsing rod that people would hold to find water. So they live in the same family. And now you see pendulums mostly in use, and most popularly in use as a divination tool. So that helps us to tap into our intuition, listen to our subconscious, and kind of hear what our inner voice is telling us. So the way that a pendulum works, and I have one right here that I will grab. The way that a pendulum works, we'll talk about this more tomorrow, but really, you ask something of it, and it's going to move in some direction. And there's two schools of thought as to why it's moving. The hard fact kind of science evidence behind it is that it's our subconscious that's actually moving the pendulum, and it's nerves that are generating, the nerve movements are generating through our hands from our subconscious thoughts. And so that's kind of the main school of thought around how a pendulum works. And then additionally, some people believe, though, that their subconscious is guided by, a divine figure, a spirit guide, and that it's that divine figure or that spirit guide that's coming through to their subconscious, and then, we're moving the pendulum with the nerves that are activated as a result of those subconscious thoughts. So those are kind of the two schools of thought in that. So it's our subconscious is truly ours, and then those who believe that our subconscious is influenced by something other than ourselves. So either way, whichever one you believe in, it's totally cool with me. But just so you know, those are two different kinds of schools of thought around how the pendulum is actually moving. So now that we've covered just a little bit of history on the pendulum, we're going to go ahead and talk about the different types of pendulums. So basically a pendulum is just a weighted object kind of at the end of a chain, or like a piece of yarn or a string, even on a necklace. A pendant can be a pendulum as well. So that's basically what a pendulum is, but they can come in a variety of different forms, and I have some here that I'm going to show you. If you see me kind of looking around, that's what I'm looking at here. Pendulums are awesome because they're really the only divination tool that's super lightweight and that you can really kind of use without somebody noticing. I mean, you can just kind of use it under a table and not draw any attention to yourself if you don't, feel like having that conversation in the moment, like what you're doing. Where something like, if you were going to do scrying into like a crystal ball or a mirror, or use oracle cards or tarot cards, I mean, you have to take that out, set something up. And so a pendulum, it's super portable. You can carry it around with you anywhere you go. and use it without having to explain to anybody what you're doing. If you'd like to keep it, more private, or just don't really want to dive into that conversation at the moment. So back to, anyway, the different types of pendulums here. So you can find pendulums made with a variety of different crystals, and basically, so here's two here, just different stones. Typically you'll find them kind of in this cone pyramid shape, which is really popular because you can use it if you're using a grid or something that you're using your pendulum over. You can clearly see where it's pointing. This one here is kind of in a more decorative cut to it. So when you're choosing the crystal, if you're choosing one that is a crystal, you can choose based on the type of crystal. So, for me, I tend to do a lot of work on kind of self-love stuff, and so rose quartz for me is kind of a natural choice. I tend to gravitate towards many things with rose quartz on it. So for me, a rose quartz one made a lot of sense. If you are looking to enhance creative energy, or you're a very creative person, you might want to go with something like an amethyst. If you're going to be searching for answers or questions around safety or protection, maybe a black pendulum, a black stone might be best for you. So you can choose your crystal-based pendulum based on the actual crystal. And then whether you want one that's a little more decorative cut or just the standard cone, kind of pyramid, put the other way around, it's kind of up to you. And then when you are choosing a pendulum, if you are able to hold it, you can actually ask the pendulum too at the counter, is this the right pendulum for me? And kind of see which way it swings, if it's giving you like a nod yes, or shaking its head if it was a head, if it's shaking itself left and right for a no. It might be kind of hard if you've never used one before and you don't know how to expect it to respond, and some might respond differently. But you can give it, hold it up, see how it feels, the weight of it in your hand. So crystals are ones that you're going to see frequently. Aside from crystals, you can find them. This one is resin. It's a resin, and it has kind of some gold sparkles in it. I don't know if you can see it. It has kind of some gold sparkles in it, and just pieces of, I'm not even sure if this is plastic or stone, but it's pretty lightweight. So this is just a really pretty resin one. And again, if you're just looking for something that really calls to you, maybe this kind of fits with the tone of decorations that you use in your house, or you really gravitate towards the gold sparkly things, and this one might be perfect for you. So that's another one. There are also wooden pendulums that are super lightweight. This pendulum is like air, like I barely even notice it's there. But if you're really into the elementals or tree energy, then a wooden one might be the right choice for you, or just the natural kind of earthy feeling vibe. That could be the right one. And then finally, you're going to find metal pendulums. So you can find really simple metal pendulums. This one is more decorative. It has a dragonfly on it. So you might choose something like this if you're really into a certain symbol. So dragonflies are, like a symbol of change and kind of finding yourself or maturity. So if that's the kind of where you're at in your life and what you're doing with your magic, your divination, your kind of life moment, then that might be something that you're drawn to. And it has some pretty blue crystals on it. And metal pendulums are nice because they're heavier, so you can actually get a really good, a strong read from them when they move. Where if you're new to using a pendulum, a really super lightweight one, like this wooden one, might not be the best choice for you, because it's not always as easy to pick up on the movements. Obviously these are moving a lot because I'm just like picking them up off the table, but a really lightweight one might be harder for you to kind of recognize the movements, and a super heavy one, like this metal one is really heavy, that might be a better choice for a beginner. And then this is another metal one. This is actually called an Isis pendulum. And what makes this one different is that, I'm trying to get it close to you. So this one has, you can see, it has kind of rings around the actual pendulum part. And so those rings, you can find these pendulums with a variety of different rings. So some have 3, you can find them with 6 or 7. And you can also find them without. This one actually unscrews. If I can get it to unscrew. So you can find them that have a different base. So this one has kind of like this dish of a base. You can find them where they just continue on and are long with like a little point at the end. And so it's said that these rings that are on the Isis pendulum enhance kind of the ability of the pendulum to kind of transmit, and that the Isis pendulums are not only good for transmitting your own energy, but also receiving energy, and that these kind of, the rings on it, make it great for long distance work. So if you are doing some kind of questioning where maybe you're trying to ask a question for somebody, or you're working with a client or something long distance over Skype or through kind of email, that the Isis pendulums are said to be able to kind of be better receptors of long distance work and for long distance healing, if you're using a pendulum for healing, because of those rings. So that is another option. And this one's actually not as heavy for a metal pendulum. It doesn't have a lot to it, but it's super cool. I love this pendulum. And then you will see here, finally, I'll give you this little bit of information about choosing a pendulum. You'll see that they're different lengths. So, no, this one's all mucked up. Okay, here we go. So these are 3 different lengths of the pendulum. And it's weird because they're right in front of my face. So the longer that a pendulum is, and this one's really lightweight, so it doesn't necessarily fit exactly what I'm going to say right now, but the longer the chain is, it tends to be better for a beginner, because again, you can get that kind of wide movement going, that broad movement, the broad strokes, where if it's a shorter one, it's not as easy to get that kind of big span of movement if you're not sure which way a yes is or a no is or a maybe for you. Then you might want a longer one. So if you're super new to using a pendulum, I would recommend kind of a longer chain or longer string and a heavier actual pendulum, the body of the pendulum. I would recommend it to be heavier and a longer string, so kind of a combination of these. This one that I have here actually be great for beginner. It's a longer chain and it's fairly hefty. So that's basically it about different types of pendulums. Choosing a pendulum, you really want to feel good about the pendulum. You don't want to, if you pick it up and it's not giving you great vibes, or you don't really love it, don't feel pressured into buying it, especially if there's like a salesperson really trying to get you to buy it. It's okay to say no, obviously. If you're buying it online, then you kind of want to think, if you're buying one that's a crystal, and the pendulum's a crystal, what crystals do you typically resonate towards? Kind of where are you at in life right now? What are you focusing on? What kind of crystals might enhance that for you? And if you don't want to buy one right away and just want to try, all you really need is a weighted object and some string, and you can make a pendulum. My pendant here, in a pinch or when I'm out and about, works perfectly as a pendulum. I've even seen some people in my community grab their earbuds just from their iPhone and use that as a pendulum. So really anything that has kind of a weight that hangs down, you can use as a pendulum. So if you are not, prepared to purchase one yet, or you don't have a physical shop that you can go to purchase one, you really want to, get your hands on one before you buy it, and then just go ahead and make one for yourself, or use whatever you have around the house and dive right in. And then once you get a feel for it, and maybe you can kind of recognize what it feels like to think of a yes or no for yourself, then go to a store and start shopping for a pendulum. So that's it today on choosing a pendulum and different types of pendulums. If you have any questions at all, you can head over to our Facebook group and feel free to ask any questions in there, and I will answer them when I see them. And the second part of the video will come to you tomorrow, and that will be about programming and actually using your pendulum. So we'll dive into some really fun stuff tomorrow. Now that you've got an overview of pendulums, you know what to expect and can go shopping for one. All right. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.